afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Deanne Donahue, Vice President of Global Cities at Mastercard, and it's a pleasure to have you joining us this evening. I just want to do a little bit of a quick introduction before we kick off into our session. As you all are very well aware, small businesses are the lifeline and the lifeblood of many cities around the United States, with more than 30 million small businesses in the US and employing more than half of our entire American workforce. That is why small businesses are the core of what we do and who we are at Mastercard. We know that in the US, many small businesses are still facing numerous challenges with the effects of the pandemic. On top of that, supply chain disruptions, staffing strains, sustained inflation, and so much more. And with 46% of all cyber attacks and breaches impacting businesses with less than 1,000 employees, cyber education is more important than ever. And we are so excited this evening to have some of our cyber team to share more with you to help you with your business. So I encourage you as we go through this session to please put your questions into the Q&A on your screen as we go along. Our team is happy to answer any questions for you. And we will make sure that we pose those questions to both of the presenters at the end of this presentation. In addition to that, tomorrow you will all receive an email with a survey and a link to access the replay of this, as well as the presentation that you will see in the attendee hub. So we encourage you to go through that, as well as complete that survey for us. This is what helps drive following sessions and things that we are doing to support all of you. So we encourage you to make sure that you go out and give us that feedback. With that, I'm actually going to hand it off to one of my colleagues, Colleen Galvin, who is the Director of Financial Inclusion at Mastercard's Small Business Team.
Thank you so much for that intro, Deanne. Good evening, everyone. I want to first thank you all for joining us. I know how busy small business owners are, as well as the practitioners that serve them, and you're taking time out of your day to be with us. So thank you for that. As the Director of Financial Inclusion for North America Small Business, I have been working here at Mastercard in support of our Digital Doors program. And this was launched in the height of the pandemic to help businesses like yours to pivot, to get online, accept digital payments. And you might say, well, why is Mastercard doing this? And we know that when your businesses do well, we do well. But we also know that access to information, access to economic opportunities is not always evenly distributed. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to connect you with best-in-class technology tools and answers to your questions. We're also evolving the program now that we are 3 years out from COVID to really address the needs we're hearing from you all around digital marketing, cybersecurity, and how to streamline your operations and get more digital in your supply chains. So I would encourage you all after this session to visit our website, mastercard.us/digital doors. We are going through a very exciting refresh. We'll have new content, new partners and offers starting next week. I will come back on later to tell you about some of the other sessions coming up. And just know that this is really part and parcel of Mastercard's mission, whether it's the 500 million we've committed through In Solidarity in the US to Black communities and Black business owners, or the global commitment to get 50 million micro and small businesses digital, 25 million of which are women. We really care about helping take your business to the next level. Before I hand it over to my colleague, David Hausman, I want to say that you should be a little scared tonight. After hearing from David, you're going to be scared, and that's good because then you're going to feel empowered on how to protect your business. David and Gina do phenomenal work and really know all the ins and outs of cybersecurity. Even if your business is small, there are things you can do very easily to protect yourself, your customers, and your employees. So with that, I would like to ask my colleague, David Hausman, Manager in Product Development for Mastercard Cyber Intelligence Solutions, to take the reins. And he's going to be speaking to you all for about a half an hour. But again, I would encourage you to use the chat if you'd like to speak with each other, and the Q&A if you'd like to ask one of the presenters or one of us a question, and we'll be screening those, as Deanne said. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Colleen, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As Colleen said, my name is David Hausman, a manager within Mastercard Cyber Intelligence Solutions. At Mastercard Cyber Intelligence Solutions, I work on developing products, cybersecurity products, that help Mastercard stakeholders defend themselves against cyber attacks. A little about me. Prior to joining Mastercard, I was at the Florida Center for Cybersecurity. That was a statewide center that the state had set up to do, among other things, help small businesses. And so this is really exciting for me to be able to continue some of that mission. We all know that small businesses are such a critical part of our economy. They're huge employers, center of economic activity. And so it's very important to be able to get them the resources. And what I'm going to share with you today are hopefully the easy things, right? The low-hanging fruit that we could address, and just give you some basic feedback and guidance that can really help you reduce a lot of the risk. And then after I talk, I'll introduce you to my colleague, Gina, and Gina will be able to give you even more resources to help you continue along that pathway. I want to start out just by describing the cybersecurity landscape. There's a lot on the slide, and that's intentional. It's meant to be overwhelming because the truth of the matter is the cybersecurity landscape is a little bit overwhelming itself. It's no surprise to anyone that cyber attacks are increasing. And a lot of the headlines that we see, we see large companies and governments being the victims of these cyber attacks. And while that's true, that doesn't preclude small businesses from being impacted. The Cyber Readiness Institute, which is a nonprofit that Mastercard partners with, did a survey of 400 small businesses that had less than 10 employees back in June 2020, so peak of the pandemic. And the findings are really interesting. They found that 89% of small businesses at that time were moving to a remote workforce because of COVID, and 35% of those businesses did not have any type of incident response policy. And while it's alarming to me as a cybersecurity professional, at the same time, it's not, right? Because you're running a business with limited resources, you're a small business, you're wearing multiple hats at once. And so what I really want to focus on for the rest of this presentation is giving you the things that you can do, or the questions you can ask to those that are helping run your business. And hopefully that reduces a lot of the cybersecurity risk. We're advancing and moving digital faster than ever. Businesses that had no web presence now likely have one. It's almost impossible not to. And even though those create a lot of great opportunities for businesses, it also introduces entirely new risks. The landscape is constantly changing, and there's geographical implications too, and even things that we might not expect, but can have cascading effects, geopolitical events, the war in Ukraine and things like that, all can end up affecting what cyber criminals are doing and if your business might be impacted. To maximize our time, I figured we should really focus on the low-hanging fruits. These are weaknesses these aren't new, they're not sophisticated, really not going to go at anything that's too high-tech or too crazy. Most of this should be within reach of you or your employees. And these are things where there's a lot of guidance out there also on the internet. Between Mastercard resources, government resources, and elsewhere, there's a lot more information on these topics. COVID's only increased and exacerbated these threats, but some of the ones I want to talk about are the importance of updating your software and what happens if you're running outdated software, weak authentication, and when we talk about authentication, we're really talking about passwords and other things to help really secure yourself. We're in a new era of third-party risks. A lot of the businesses that we've seen that have gone online and digital, you can't do it alone. You need to rely on third parties to help you do that. It could be web providers, it could be e-commerce platforms and others. But with that new relationship with a third party, that introduces additional risk. And then there's some of the other things that happen in daily life, right? Phishing emails and social engineering, and the big headlines like ransomware. So I want to start with really one of the easiest and the most important, and it's updating software. Throughout the course of our lives, right, not just as a business owner, but as user internet, we're all familiar with the need to update software. These screenshots are nothing surprising to you. We all get these pop-ups on our phone, right, reminding us to update our phone, or in our internet browser telling us that we need to update it. And usually, right, these are reminders. It's not automatically happening. And it gives us the option of whether or not we're going to make those updates. But the important thing to note is that whenever we get prompted for an update, beyond adding new features and cool new layouts and things like that, what companies are actually doing is they're putting in fixes for some critical security issues in these. So it's really important to be able to update things in a prompt manner. Some of the more common ones, like the iPhone, I think we're all familiar with it, right? And sometimes there's even an auto update function, which are really important to take advantage of. But then there's other ones, right? There's other sources. So on the left side of the screen, what you see is WordPress. I know it's a really common tool used by small businesses. And it makes hosting and providing a web experience for your customers really easy. And even on platforms like that, here's an example of when you might sign in, you'll be prompted for something like an update to your website. And it's really easy, right, to gloss over that. And maybe you want to go and edit your inventory, or you have a new blog post you're looking to put out, or some other update to content, and you gloss right over the update button because it could take down your website for a minute. Maybe you're not sure of what the repercussions of updating it may be. But these are all critical. To the point, the second Tuesday of every month is something that's known as Patch Tuesday within the security industry. And that's because that's actually the day that Microsoft releases all their new updates. And it also happens to be one of the most common days for hackers, because what hackers are doing is they're responding to the latest updates, and they're trying to beat you, beat you to it. Before people can put in place those updates to better protect themselves, the hackers know there's a narrow window, and they're really going to seek to take advantage of that. The important thing to highlight is that why is software patching so important? And it's really because of that's an entryway. It's an attack vector, or really the way that a criminal might actually gain access and do something actually worse, right? In this case, what I really want to focus on is digital skimming. This is an attack that's really prevalent among small businesses. It targets specifically small business websites that collect payment information, right? So when you want to process credit cards. And the threat's been around for the past 5 years, but it's really exploded during COVID. We know more people than ever are shopping online. It's become a convenient alternative and even a preferred method for many people. And what targets them is something called digital skimming. Sometimes you may hear this by other words known as mage cart or form jacking. But essentially what all of these are referring to is it's something that a hacker is implanting into a website. And then they're able to put in this malicious code that's going to go ahead and actually steal the payment credentials from your customers. And so while your customers may be interacting on your website and able to complete a transaction, at the same time, they may be having their credit card credentials compromised. And important enough to highlight here is, how do criminals get to these sites? We often talk about these cyber criminals and hackers as really smart people with deep technical knowledge. This may be the case sometimes, but a lot of times the truth is that the majority of these attacks don't require that knowledge. You don't need deep technical knowledge or expertise to conduct these. In fact, it's a pretty low barrier to entry, and that's why we see so many victims. On the right side of the screen, you could see a posting in which someone identified more than 300,000 vulnerable e-commerce websites that were affected by just one vulnerability, right? So back to updating software, there were 300,000 websites which didn't make the necessary update to protect themselves against a certain vulnerability. In this case, that vulnerability was announced in the middle of February 2022, and this posting detailing the more than 300,000 vulnerable merchants was just 1 month later. This list of websites was actually free, and then there were also some sales of this list. So the criminals, while not necessarily needing to be deeply technical, they just need to know where to go to be able to figure out who are the vulnerable small businesses that they can then take advantage of. So what is digital skimming? This is a look at the source code behind a website. Every website, you could go in your browser if you wanted to, but you could go ahead and see the code. And this is what makes a website appear friendly. It loads all your graphics and forms and all of the functionality. This is the code behind it. And what's highlighted here in orange is actually just a tiny little snippet. You could see it's around at the 1300th line within the code. And what's in orange is actually a digital skimmer code. So it's a really tiny little piece of code that was injected in someone's website to go ahead and victimize that merchant, that small business, and steal their customers' payment information. Because it's so small, this makes it really hard to detect. And beyond just being one tiny snippet within code on a website, this is actually what that code does. When we open it up, we could see that it's obfuscated or encrypted, right? What this is this is actually a real example of some code. And so what happens is, or the criminals will figure out ways to make it more difficult to see, right? This isn't intelligible to us. It's not easily understandable. And there's nothing that looking at this that will tell you that, hey, like someone has infiltrated my website and they're getting ready to, to cause harm to not only to my customers and their cards, but also right to my business's reputation, because this could be happening to them. What does this code do? This is when we convert that into something a little more human readable. I have some samples highlighted, but you could see, right? They're pulling things off of your payment form from the website. So in here, they're taking the name, the city and state, the credit card security code, and expiration date, and they're taking all of those things, and they're sending it to their own databases, right? And they're going to take that and harvest those credentials, and it'll go into a fairly complicated criminal ecosystem, right? But all by having done something that's fairly easy for them to identify. If you guys go into Google or take a look at the news and you search digital skimming or Magecart, we can see that how common these attacks are. And one of the newest trends that we see is that we're kind of in the age of automation, right? Not just for our businesses, but for the criminals. And so this is what's called the spray and pray attack. And here's two examples on this, but what the criminals are doing is they're actually targeting services that small businesses may use or large businesses, and they're infecting those services. So by making that one infection with the service, they're actually infecting several hundred small, medium businesses at the same time. It's a really big problem. And that's just really driving in the point that it doesn't even have to be a direct weakness among you, but also in your third parties. There's lots of things you could do. All of that was around like a hypothetical scenario, or actually a real life scenario in that case, that was affecting merchants who failed to update their software. But there are other ways that criminals can take advantage of you. And a really big one is weak authentication practices. This is all about passwords and things like that. The first problem, and I think we all see it, and we see a lot of improvement in it, but it's the use of single factor authentication, right? That is a website where you just have to type in your username and a password to get in, and you don't need one of those text message codes or another app on your phone or anything like that, right? The only factor needed to get in is having the appropriate login. Well, it's really convenient, and no one likes having to take out their phone and read a one-time text message code or download another app. It's much better to have both a password and another factor, like those additional codes. That makes it a lot harder for someone to gain access to your email, to your banking, to your website management platform. It makes it much harder for them to get into, because even if they have your password, that's still another blocker where they would have to have, in this case, right, your phone to also get in and victimize your business. Various studies show, but the use of multi-factor authentication, right, so that text code or whatever that additional step is, can prevent as much as 80 to 90% of cyber attacks. That was according to the US National Cybersecurity Chief back in 2021. And I think that statistic still continues to stand strong. We see even more wide adoption, right, of multi-factor authentication. More and more sources are requiring you to set that up on your business. But a lot of times, especially when we go back to looking at like maybe your website administration panel, like that's in the areas where it's on you as a business owner to make sure that those functions are enabled, or that you're making sure that your service providers are enabling those for you. Other really prevalent problem, right? What multi-factor authentication is addressing is really when criminals have access to your password. Password reuse is so common. It is so hard to be able to maintain multiple passwords for everything and never reuse one. I know many of you, I have, but right, where you might receive an email notification from someone that you've done business with, and they're saying, hey, your information's been compromised. We had a breach. They'll offer you identity monitoring and other things like that. But in there, right, are details that are going to be out there for a long time, and criminals will seek to take advantage of that. Just because you were breached somewhere or that password was used in one place, criminals know we're humans, right? So we reuse those passwords, and maybe it is a cell phone provider that had an incident, but they will go ahead and attempt to do that on your banking site or on your website administration panel or in other sensitive sources. That's the risk of reusing the same credentials. So not only do we want to, use multi-factor authentication, but it's also really important to cut out on that password reuse. Next thing I want to talk about is publicly facing login portals. So I have a screenshot here at the bottom right of it, but all of your websites have one, right? Every system we have, there's somewhere you go in, and that's what allows you to update your inventory, to publish new news on your website, to change the layout and things like that. Really making sure that you focus on, right, all of those things that I control, those little things that maybe aren't front of mind. Those are what hackers know how to search for. And so those are really the important ones that you really want to protect. The last thing I want to touch on this page is that now more than ever, we're relying on vendors. Vendors help us deliver our e-commerce services. They help us with fulfillment. They help with banking. The number of vendor relationships now is more than ever. In this case, what I've listed on the screen is sometimes we give our vendors access to help us run our systems, right? We might have an IT support company who's helping us administer things. It's really important that whoever we're doing business with, we want to just ask them, how are you protecting that access, right? If I'm giving you access to my information and to my customers' information, how are you protecting it? Are you doing all of those good practices that I do myself, right? Are you making sure that people aren't reusing passwords, and do they require multi-factor authentication till they get in? Are they limiting where they can access it from, right? Is it accessible from anywhere on the internet? Or does it have to be accessed from their office location? These are all questions that are really important to ask of those third parties, because whatever access they have, right, that's just another entry point. And so you may have all of your best practices in place, but it's so important to make sure and feel comfortable of asking them, are you practicing what's best? This is something I like to do as a little break. I know in this question can't necessarily have live feedback, but I encourage everyone always to go to this website. It's called haveibeenpwned.com. It's actually created by a security researcher who started aggregating information that was floating on the internet from data breaches. And the objective of this website is to really allow people to type in their email address and find out what breaches are publicly known where their information's been disclosed. So there's a QR code on the screen if you ever wanted to do it. When we do it in a live session with feedback, you always get some people that are just amazed for the amount of sources where they may have been affected. Some of them are new, some are years old, but in every case, this I think really goes to drive home why it's so important that we do all of those things, those strong authentication practices, the multi-factor authentication. You could do things like utilize password managers, but anything to really strengthen all of those processes. And finally, really the last big vulnerability that I want to talk to you all about are phishing and social engineering scams. These have gotten a lot of attention lately. Phishing and social engineering are, those are attack vectors, right? So that is how the attackers are getting into your business or your systems. And unfortunately, it just takes one of these emails and they can do an immense amount of damage. They can install malware and viruses, they could perform identity theft, and they could even install ransomware and lock your computer, right? And that's, in that case, they're demanding payment from you and they may be stealing your information. We need to be really careful about the emails that we open. We click on links in them and they can download all types of malicious things. The information they ask us to submit, hackers are getting really good at this. It's no longer obvious when it's a phishing email. You know, in the past, I think we all saw those emails, the typical scam emails where, there's a lot of typos in it and the writing's really funny. It's really formal and strange, and it's not quite how we talk. But especially if we have AI and other things right now, the criminals' practice and the fraudsters' practice are getting better and more convincing. And that's what we see. Here's a sample of just some that come through, right? We see all kinds of things that could be a prompt, such as a payment that's due that's unable to get processed. Or in this case, on the bottom right screen, right, we see that that fraudsters were really eager to take advantage of COVID-19 relief funds, programs like the PPP. That's a common tool in the fraudsters' arsenal, cyber criminals' arsenal, is they're trying to find topics where they're urgent, they're really important, time sensitive, any of those techniques, right, to help get you drop your guard and take some type of action. And when you do that, you often go back, when you go back and look, you'll realize that there's actually, there were several signs, but all those other things were effective in getting you to drop your guard because you wanted to take care of something that was so important to you or to your business. One of the best rules of thumb for any of these, whether it's payment, it's someone telling you that they've updated banking information, or they're asking you to supply some piece of detail about your business. A really good way to think about it is if you're walking down the street and someone stopped you and asked you for certain information, they said, "Hi, I'm from your bank. I just need to update your information," right? You would be guarded. You would say, "No, I'm not giving you this piece of information. No, I'm not signing into, right, giving you the password to my bank account," or right, "No, the invoice you just handed me, I'm not going to pay it right away because you told me it's past due." Right, it's really the same barrier of entry when we think about email. There's no barrier to sending someone an email. And so they're going to rely on all those other triggers to help you, to help you drop your guard. But really just put it in that perspective, right? If someone asked you this in person to take that action or to supply that information, would you do it right away, or would you be a little guarded and start to question, who are they? Should I really be sure that it's actually this person? The last one I want to hint at in this phishing and social engineering world is on the top, and that's kind of a little cartoon image, but you can see that there's a criminal climbing a ladder and he's changing the from name on an email. And that's really a strong technique. And there's a method, right? If your email isn't protected in a certain way as a business, people are able to impersonate your business. And that carries a lot of risk because not only can they maybe, in some cases for business email compromise, they may take advantage of that and send someone new banking information that purports to be from your business, right? And now your invoices that you're attempting to collect payment for, those payments are really going to a fraudster. But it could also go in other directions, right? People can also defraud other businesses using your business as a name. So really making sure that your email employs some of the security best practices, whether it's things like Gmail or Microsoft or other common email providers for small businesses. It's really good to go ahead and look up their security guides or whoever you have handling that part of your business and make sure that they just go through their checklist. There's really strong security best practices and checklists to help make sure that not only are you not being impersonated as a business, but it can help flag emails when they come in if someone else is impersonating. All of those are really strong practices that can help to cut out some of this clutter. And just reiterating that some of the best practices really just to take a minute and think about what they're asking you to do. I went through a lot in a really short amount of time. I want to make sure that we leave enough time for Gina to cover some really great resources for you guys, as well as time for question and answer. So I just want to go back over what we talked about. The importance of keeping software up to date with the latest patches, doing simple things like enabling automatic updates every time we can, and having regular backups. Those are so important because in our digital skimming example, we saw that, right? It took a month for fraudsters to compile a list of more than 300,000 vulnerable merchants, right? And that was just one vulnerability that I used as an example, but those real life timelines. So within 30 days, right, there's mass targeting against businesses who aren't doing those things. And when looking at weak authentication, right, enabling two-factor authentication, even if it's a little more difficult, it causes that extra step or you have to download a new app, it's well worth it. A lot of times, you can look up resources on this, and sometimes people will say that, a text message is less secure than downloading an app, and certain things like that. While those are all true, I wouldn't ever let that deter you from just putting in place any of those factors. Right, just having that block is so strong and such a really strong measure. Password reuse is really hard, especially if you're trying to maintain them all yourself. I always encourage people to go ahead and look up password managers. There's quite a few large ones in the market that are popular, that are relatively well trusted. And what that does is that helps keep track of unique passwords for all of your resources and keep them in a secure place. And the last part on authentication is it's not just about you, but it's your suppliers. So feel comfortable talking to your suppliers. Ask them about how they're protecting it. Are they doing all of these good practices that you are? Are they putting into place two-factor authentication and restricting where they can access your systems from? The final part to revisit is what can happen with emails. We know it could lead to ransomware. It can lead to business email compromise and fraud. It could even lead to reputational risk, right? If someone's impersonating your business. So no matter what, just don't be rushed by sense of urgency in messages. Take your time, apply the same diligence you would if someone asked you certain things on the street or requested you do something. And just listen to your gut, right? If something feels off, you can wait, you could delete the message. You can go ahead and look up their number, right, in your phone and contact them and verify. There's all kinds of things you could do, right, that if it adds another 10 minutes to responding to it, the truth of the matter is, right, whatever the urgent issue is, 10 minutes is not likely too late to respond to an invoice that needs payment or some other urgent matter. I covered a lot of what to do and how to best protect yourself. I think it's really important to know where to go if something happens. And that's not just for you, but just the more resources within communities you may have. These incidents can happen to anyone. They can happen to you, your business, your friends, family, neighbors, other business owners. So I always just like to cover what to do if you are or know someone that's a victim of a crime. Just a couple of the basic best practices, right? Always file a police report and document what's happened. There are so many regulations, right, attempting to get a grapple on the cybercrime issue. And so it's really good to check with your state law enforcement, police departments, attorneys general's office. All of those help you not go astray, right, from some of the reporting requirements. We see that on a state-by-state level and depending on where you're doing business, there could be varying requirements. And so just by informing those people, you could help navigate that lengthy and complicated process. And the last one is the FBI has an Internet Crime Complaint Center. It's known as IC3. That's a really important function. And while the FBI is not going to investigate every type of crime, what it really does is help them identify who are the large criminal groups behind this and help aggregate it and bring it to a level where they can action it. With all this said, it's important to leverage resources. Right, you or the other people that are affected by cybercrime are never alone. Cybercrime Support Network is a really great resource and has this really cool navigator for how to, depending on how you might have been victimized, it can help you navigate that process and think of important steps. There's nonprofits like No More Ransom, which help people to recover from ransomware without having to pay that ransom payment. The federal government has the Small Business Administration. There's also the National Cybersecurity Alliance. And with that being said, I want to hand it over to my colleague, Gina, who's going to provide you an overview of what Mastercard has to offer. And that's the Mastercard Trust Center. So thank you all again for your time. And Gina, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you, David. You provided some really great information that's important, and you really started off with, what are the things that you can do that are things you can do right now that will make a big difference in cybersecurity. So my name is Gina Ganal. I'm Vice President of Product Management in the Cyber Intelligence Solutions Group at Mastercard, and I'm responsible for creating education programs for customers. And I'm really happy to tell you about the biggest project that I have, and I work with a colleague, and we created the Mastercard Trust Center that provides free cybersecurity education, resources, and tools, all designed to help you secure your business. So, have you ever felt like this when something goes wrong with your computer? Like you can't turn it on. For some reason, it just won't turn on, or you lose a file that's really important to you. Like, I've had that feeling before myself. Well, imagine if all of a sudden your customer files and your employee files are locked and you can't get into them. this is what you're going to look like if you find that you have a cyber breach. And like I was saying, imagine you can't get a hold of your computer or your customer records and your employee records, and then you get an email that says you have to pay $25,000 to unencrypt your files. It's not a good feeling. So that's why we created the Mastercard Trust Center. So the Trust Center is part of Mastercard's prime directive to be a force for good. And it provides free cybersecurity education, resources, and tools designed to help small and medium-sized businesses improve the security of your ecosystem. You can see statistics on the one on this slide and the ones that David shared. It's pretty sobering that to think that, wow, your business could be destroyed or damaged, your reputation damaged with a cyber attack. But there are these things that you can do that are not all that difficult to do. It just takes some time commitment to learn and to implement them and to teach your employees too. So I will show you the Trust Center in just a minute, but just to give you an overview, the Trust Center is designed to meet the learning needs of every visitor, no matter how much or how little that you know about cybersecurity. So you can come in and you can learn the basics. You can start, if you know the basics, you can go right to expand your knowledge. And then if you pretty much know a lot of things about cybersecurity, you can go to Master Your Security to make sure you stay ahead. And the content on the Trust Center is in a lot of different interesting formats. So it makes learning interesting and fun and accessible. And I believe you'll be getting a copy of this slide and you'll be able to access the Trust Center from here. But let me show you the Trust Center. So this is the Trust Center. Make sure, there we go. We show a couple of startling statistics to get your attention, but also to give you a reality check about how severe cyber attacks can be. And it's not surprising to see that 83% of cyber attacks are on small businesses. Businesses are just not prepared to be able to handle those financially. So here are the learning journeys. And there are 5 pages on the Trust Center. And so this is the first one. You can access the learning journeys, and we'll go explore one in just a minute. We also have featured content that comes from Mastercard. And so you can learn here. And we also have our 5th page is access here to resources and solutions. But just let's take a quick look at Learn the Basics. A couple more statistics. And each of the learning journeys has 3 content areas: cybersecurity core concepts, cyber attack methods, and help protect your business. So let's take a look, and you just click across on those. So this gives you a good overview. And like I say, this is learning the basics, and we don't assume that everybody knows all these things. So we start with the basic. Why is cybersecurity important? And when you click here, you go to another site, opens another tab, and you can watch this video, which we won't do right now, but just to show you how it works. So the content is really accessible. You get to see, read about what the content is to see if it's something that you want to learn about. And at the end, we have, of each of the pages, we have other resources you can go to. For example, this goes out to the Cyber Readiness Institute. That's a nonprofit organization that's devoted to helping small businesses get secure. And they have some great resources. But we're going to go back up here and go to cyber attack methods. So these are some of the things that David talked about today. So you can go and learn more about authentication, passwords, and multi-factor authentication. And you can also learn more about phishing, how to protect your small business from phishing, and software updates. All these things are things that David talked about, but they're things that you can take a little deeper dive to learn and then try it out on your own. And then also we have the section where you can actually have best practices and steps you can take, and also some free tools. And so you can test your cyber readiness. You can take a phishing quiz and test yourself. If you've got employees, test your employees too. So it'll give you a good idea, how much you know and they know, and best practices. So here's some more things that you can do. And then here we have some more things that you can do at a phishing or a patching policy. That's something that you could have, and so that you make sure that all of your employees know what they're expected to do to update their software, hardware, and such to stay secure. More about two-factor authentication. So each of the other learning journeys have the same setup, but more advanced information. And then we'll take a look here at the resources and solutions page, because there's more resources that you can find. If you are interested in learning about cryptocurrency, because it's such a hot topic, you can watch a 37-minute training video. It's jam-packed with information. You can visit Entrepreneur's Odyssey from Mastercard, and I'll show you this very quickly, because it provides information for entrepreneurs depending on where you are in your stage of developing your company. But you can learn how to design a business, how to launch a business, how to manage, grow a business, and also you can join a community. So it's right there on the Trust Center. And then we also have another partner, actually from Singapore. The Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore has resources there. And you can go to the Global Cyber Alliance's Cybersecurity Toolkit for Small Businesses, and that has more resources. You can see that there's a lot that you can do to learn. And Mastercard provides this because, as Colleen says, we know how important your small businesses and other small businesses are to the economics of the whole globe. And so if we as a company can help you with free resources to get secure, then that's good for all of society. We have more information that you can access for cybersecurity solutions for small businesses. And all you do is you can scan this QR code with your phone, use your rear-facing camera, and you can go in there and tap on the link that pops up, and you can go visit the site to see more information.
Gina, can you click on that last slide so it comes up big on the screen with the QR code? And this is the new small and medium business cybersecurity toolkit, right?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have three screens going. There's too many screens.
And you all will get, again, access to the deck and to a link in the thank you email to this.
So Colleen, I believe David and I are ready for questions.
Thank you. Thank you both. I love how on such a, again, scary and daunting topic, you both have very calm, soothing voices and practical information. So I do, it is a little overwhelming because there is so much that can be done. But again, attendees, if you want to please leverage the Q&A in the attendee hub. We're monitoring for your questions. There is one here, which is, given everything we've heard tonight, what do you both feel are the three most important things? What are the three things you'd want a business owner to do first and foremost to get started on their cybersecurity journey?
David, you want to take this one?
Sure. Okay, number one, update software.
Right.
I think that's the easy one, right? Get the automatic update set up everywhere you can. Takes a lot of the burden off you. It's a great move. Number two, try to implement a password manager and turn on that two-factor authentication. And the last one, you're never going to know it all, and that's okay. But take advantage of things like the Trust Center and other resources out there, whether it's Mastercard resources, it's Small Business Administration, wherever it may be. But there's a lot of information out there that can help you navigate some of these topics. And there's even free resources where they may even help provide services. So just, be resourceful with it. I know there's limited time to, you're one person doing all things to run a business, but just know that there's resources that can help you figure it out.
And may I add, David, is if you have employees, your weakest employee in terms of cybersecurity is your weakest link. And so it really makes a difference if you learn what needs to be done and you make it a practice to teach your employees and then follow up and make sure they're actually doing it.
That's a great point. And you all had mentioned password managers before, David. I know you said there are several out there. Do you have a personal favorite? We won't say that it's you're not speaking on behalf of Mastercard. It's not a corporate recommendation, but.
I mean, not really. I had one and I don't like it anymore just because of the, but
Okay.
what I'd say is go and there's so many resources that have them and rate them. New York Times has the list, right? I know they went through and did it. Consumer Reports, resources like that. Yeah, there's a bunch out there that are really good and really well rated. And so
Great.
I think, read an article on it. And I think you'll feel pretty comfortable once you understand how they keep you safe.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I wonder if you all know, we heard a lot of statistics at the beginning of the presentation, but if folks aren't compelled enough yet to take action to protect their business, what's the average cost to a cyber attack to a small business? Do you know?
The numbers that I've seen really vary. So I don't know what source to, have you seen anything that, David, that?
It's devastating. I'll leave it at that, right?
Yes.
It's hugely impactful to any organization, right? We've seen huge organizations, making, financial disclosures because it affects them so much. And to a small business, it's just going to affect you even more.
And
we do know.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Gina. You can't evaluate the total cost by just if you have a ransom attack and you pay ransom, say it's $100,000, which would be pretty cheap for a ransom attack. But it's not just that cost, it's a reputation of your business. So if you have customer records that are stolen and you get them unencrypted, you still have to go to anybody that's on that list, any customer, and you have to inform them. And if you remember years ago, Target stores were the target of an attack and the damage to their reputation based on that. It took them a while to recover. Fortunately, they did, but it was costly.
Very good point. Very good point. I think some of the numbers we've heard are average of $200,000, which if your business is under $1 million, man, that can really hurt you. But reputational risk is a critical factor. And here's a question from Brianna would like to know, is her business vulnerable to cyber attacks if she's not selling online? Should she still be concerned about this?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Because think about phishing attacks. You don't have to be selling online, but if you have an email address and your employees have an email address, if you have employees, and you get a phishing attack that you click on and you give away some personal identifying information or business information, like David said earlier, somebody sent you an email and asked for your account number from your bank because they didn't get a payment. Yes. And you don't have to be selling online to have that happen.
Great question, Brianna. Thanks for that. Go ahead.
To add to that, right, it's the disruption too. So even if you're not selling, right, how long can you go without access to your customer records or without communicating to your customers or your employees?
Oh gosh, yeah.
So there's so many angles in which it could really affect you, even if you're not an e-commerce merchant.
Yes.
Thanks for that. I see Another question came in from Tracy. She's asking, how do we talked about password managers, right? That's one type of partner you could engage, or a vendor you could engage in your cybersecurity strategy. But how do you figure out who's the right vendor or the best vendor for the type of business and the size of business I have? And that's kind of a broad question. You guys talked about a lot of resources, and David, you had some checklists, but when you think about evaluating cybersecurity partners, how do you even start that process?
I have something I can share with you.
Yeah.
And it's on the Trust Center. So
Fabulous.
And we have content on how to evaluate. Sure, I'm on the right one this time. Okay. So how do you evaluate external or outside support companies? Okay, so if you're at the home page and you click on Master Your Security, go to Cybersecurity Core Concepts, and then Outside Support. These 5 articles are all about outside support for IT and for cybersecurity. So, you know, what are they? Should you get it to manage your cybersecurity risk? How do you select the right level support? Understanding cybersecurity, vendor contract, and managing the relationship. So see how valuable the Trust Center is?
Fantastic.
Those are really great, Gina. And I think one thing I'd like to add, 2 things. Don't be afraid to ask questions to any of your vendors or potential vendors. Ask them, even if it's as simple as asking, how do you keep my customers' information safe? That's okay. Be comfortable, right? Asking those questions and being in the driver's seat for those discussions, and apply that same diligence to even vendors you wouldn't think about, right? Because they're vulnerable to cyber incidents too, right? So let's say you have a fulfillment partner who helps you ship orders. You know, it's okay asking them, right? Like, what are you doing to my customer's information to keep it safe? Are you deleting it when you're done with it? Are you keeping it encrypted? So yeah, just be comfortable asking those questions.
Great advice.
And I think you had a checklist, David, on your second to last slide of some of those questions. So that's super. I would advise everyone, when you get the thank you email tomorrow, to download all the presentations, and the recording will be available as well. I think I have one. How are we doing on time? We're okay.
3
We have a couple minutes. So one other question. This is a little bit of a darker angle, but it's a good question from Kevin. Wants to know, you know, we talked about earlier partnering with your employees on this, but is there anything I should be thinking about as the owner of the company to protect myself from my employees in this case? Meaning, I guess, should things go badly down the road, are there different access permissions and things like that we need to consider as business owners?
David, you want to answer that? I'm going to look for content on the Trust Center.
No, I think what that's referring to, and like cybersecurity professionals refer that to as insider threat.
Cyber threat.
Insider.
Insider. Got it.
Yep. Yeah. And I guess one of the best things you could think about is what we talk about is maintaining the least privileges someone needs to be able to do their job. So it doesn't necessarily have to start out as a trust thing, but in general, it's always good practice to limit the scope of what people can access to and what can they do with it, right? Can they download the database from your CRM, right? Or not? And there's different permissions, right? So when you start to do things like, let's say, for instance, you use Google Business, there are certain like checklists and features within there that may help you limit, like, can they access it without logging into their business account? Can they download it? Can they share it externally? So there are some things like that that can also help you. But in general, it's best practice to limit people's access to just what is needed for their actual job duties.
Fantastic. Thank you. What'd you find, Gina?
So this is under Master Your Security, Cybersecurity Core Concepts, and it's defining insider threats.
Ah, fabulous. What a great resource. I think that's all the questions we have for tonight. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, see, that's where it clicks out to.
Excellent. I want to thank our experts, Gina and David. We are going to be doing additional webinars on this topic this month. If anyone is interested in joining a session with the city of New York or Miami-Dade County, where this is a really, really important topic. In the coming weeks, we're going to be talking about it quite a lot. And before we go, I just wanted to very quickly share what's coming up in terms of our Digital Doors webinars. So on May 9th, we have a phenomenal capital access panel, not just with our executives and our partners, but my boss, Ginger Siegel, who leads North America Small Business for Mastercard. She's got tremendous experience in small business banking throughout her career. And she's going to be leading a discussion with the CEO of Lendio and the CEO of Axion Opportunity Fund. Lendio is a really interesting company that matches small businesses with a number of different types of lenders. And Axion Opportunity Fund is a community development financial institution that also has a number of supportive services. So they lend funds to small businesses of all types, but they also have counseling, coaching, they have subject matter experts, and a lot of great content on a number of topics. 2 weeks after that, we are hoping to bring in our friends from the Department of Commerce to talk to you about the ins and outs of export and international commerce. How do I research markets outside the US for what I sell? What are the regulations? Where do I find business partners? And how can I get financing for this? And then on June 6th, we have a partner, Jackie Jones, who leads a small company out of Birmingham, Alabama, 1 Degree Marketing. She's phenomenal. And we're going to be talking all about social media marketing. And what I love about what Jackie does is she really takes the important principles of marketing to apply it to setting your social strategy. So reminding you, how you set your marketing strategy, and then how do you apply that to all the different channels available to you. We're looking forward to telling you about additional sessions and the topics listed on the right. And again, please don't hesitate to visit our website, which is listed here at the bottom right, mastercard.us/digital doors. And you can reach us at digitaldoors@mastercard.com. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for being with us. Have a great evening.